Hey everybody, and welcome to another RCT2 hacking tutorial. As we not so subtly alluded to in the last video, today's ride is a drop tower. More specifically, an early Intamin drop tower with 4 different sides that raise and drop independently. We're going to look at a couple variations to this also, but this is going to be the main thing we'll build today. What you should know right off the bat is that I'm using a custom ride vehicle for this. This is Ruby's tilting freefall car, which we're not using the tilting feature, but I'll show you how to use it. And then we are also using some custom scenery pieces here from Extreme 97. You don't need to do that, but I wanted some of that extra realism, so Extreme was kind enough to make me these custom pieces with cables and magnetic brakes and even some little checker patterns there, sort of similar to the Cedar Fair drop towers, and they just look spectacular. So thank you very much to him for this one. So the concept for this ride is based off of something I learned from Zarathustra. If you've downloaded the Nippon Professional Baseball Championship at Tokyo Dome City Park, it's a long name, and checked that one out, there's a parachute drop tower in that park that has 8 drops, and they all drop independently but load from a single queue. That's the kind of concept that we're going with today. If, for example, you want these all to lift and drop at the same time, that's a similar hack, but we can talk through how that goes. So if you are new to the series, this is Open RCT2 only. If you don't have Open, you can get it for free. I'll put a link in the description for that. Also to download all these bits and pieces. But you can't do this in vanilla RCT or RCT Classic. Well, you can. It just takes a heck of a lot more effort. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing is this one's probably a medium difficulty, just from the complexity of it. So maybe start with some of the earlier tutorials if you're not super familiar with track merging and things like that. We are also going to use the Edit Ride Vehicles plugin here by Basile. I will also put a link in the description to download this. This plugin is absolutely invaluable, especially for hacking and doing this sort of work. We're going to use this in the next couple of tutorials here pretty heavily, and it's a spectacular plugin that you will use in your everyday building if you're doing some more complex stuff. This is probably the plugin that I use the most, this and Scenery Manager. So as we always do, let's take a look at our mock-up that we have over here and what's going on with this. So the basic premise is that we've got a single ride here, our drop tower ride, with 4 separate trains, 2 cars each, that we're going to split off and split apart. We're going to send it down to 4 individual stations, which is 4 different rides. The blue, the yellow, the green, and the pink are each different. So this is our control vehicle, but we're also going to take advantage of the gravity from these guys up top. The idea is we come out of the station and there's a chain lift through this turn and all the way up to the top. Here we can see the green one going right now. When we get to the top here and it gets off of the chain lift, the gravity and weight of the car above pushes it back. We merge backwards onto this other side track and we head on down. And then partway through, we added some brakes on this one so we have a realistic slowdown to the actual station point once again. It's a pretty easy setup in kind of its overall idea. Like I said, it's a little bit complicated in terms of what all is going on. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but it's not too difficult if you stick with me. So we'll try and make this easy. What you do need is some underground space, so I've added some here. I've also raised this section where we're going to work just to help us out a little bit. All right, so first things first, we have a 3x3 space. So let's call it this. And we're going to, so let's move that real quick, only because I'm going to use the side space just a little more than otherwise do. So we'll back this up and we're going to mark out our pieces here. So there's our 3x3 space. First things first is we want to use a ride that goes vertical. So it can be any ride that goes vertical. We're going to use the 4D here. We can use the single rail, which I've done there on the other one. The only reason I've done that is because it's just a nice clean look. and it doesn't take up too much space. So that was the only particular reason there. You can do whatever you want with it. All right, so let's get ourselves going here. I'm starting flat on the ground and going up only because in that instance the vertical pieces line up just right when it comes to the ground, I should say. So here, as we go down, let's get this guy. As we go down, you can see it goes right into the ground. We don't have to raise or lower. Once we're underground, we're going to immediately flatten it out. And that's just to save space. So you need at least, here we're at 20, we're going down to -10. You could theoretically switch to like the wild mouse or something that does that transition more quickly, but you know, we have the space, so let's use it. Now, one thing that gets a little funky here is just the orthogonal nature of the game. Means that the two in a row here are always going to sort of visually merge together just because of the nature of how the game is set up with the 4 angles. So if you're finding that that's a little bit um, confusing you or just kind of hurt your brain a little bit as you're trying to see what you're doing, feel free to color them differently. We're going to actually do some of that down below, only because it's going to make our life a lot easier as we try and figure out what goes to where. Okay, so once these fan out at the bottom, we're just going to stop it there. And then let's go and raise all these up. Now, your drop tower height can go as big or as small as you want it. I believe we went to 200 here. So we'll go here, we'll add 210 just for good measure. But it all depends on how long your underground track is. It just so happens that this is the max height. It's totally fine. Okay. And you can see already that this is merged quite nicely together, so it's hard to tell where the next one starts. Turns out it's right there. Okay. So there is our not control track, but we'll call this our dummy track, which really serves no purpose other than to hold the train. So next up, we've got a station here and the splits that we're going to put in. So we're going to use Wild Mouse just because it's got tight corners and it's just going to be generally easier to deal with. I'm going to put this right next to my platform here. And I'm going to use 3 station blocks, if only to be able to put my entrance here and my exit here. You can kind of see what we've done here as well. This setup is the same, so we've got an entrance there where the guests are queuing through and an exit. I've kind of themed this area down below so it looks like each of the towers is a separate pen. Although usually you would see the towers at parks go all at once, they can operate independently. So we're kind of going in that direction just because it's easy enough to deal with. Okay, so let's start here with our station and our car out the back, or our track out the back, which is going to be able to hold all of our cars. We've already gone through into the cheats menu and enabled pretty much everything except for building at invalid heights, because that will screw you up pretty easily. But this will allow us to do a couple of things. It allows us to change the track type, which we'll eventually do, and then it also allows us to adjust the ride vehicle. So I said earlier that we are using the tilting freefall cars from Rumi. So these debuted in his design Centurion 225 on New Element. And basically they're B&M flying coaster trains flipped over, and they have a tile shift when they go vertical, so it sucks its way right up to the tower. So let's actually look at that here real quick just to kind of show you what we mean. Let's go down to come on. Okay, so we're gonna merge that in right there. Let's get rid of or pull this into some lift hill chain. So I'm just gonna put lift chain in there temporarily so you can kind of see this as a as a method. So we're going to go with a couple of vehicles now. So what you'll notice here, if we go into, it's called blow tire. So what you'll notice here as this ride goes is that it sits right there on the track, and it's going to sit there until we get vertical. As soon as it gets vertical, you see that how it snaps up against this? That lets us build our tower here, and the ride actually sits right up against it. So that's a special customization for this type of custom ride vehicle, and that's why it makes it so useful for this. Now you can use the laydown cars, so these guys, for a similar drop tower. The only downside for these guys here is that when you run them up the vertical, they don't shift. So once you make everything invisible, they're going to stick out way far from the tower. Now you can certainly make that work if you do other different things with it. So if you do something like custom scenery element or just some kind of a custom backbone, you can make that work. But for this instance, I want them all right up against the tower. So that's why we're going through with this here. Get rid of this chain lift. I will screw up our plan. And then let's go back through here and delete all of what else we've done. Okay, I'm also going to delete these huts for clarity. Get rid of those, we'll add them back in a little bit. All right, so what are we doing now? We are splitting this up. So we have a starting section here, and we're going to have 4 different ride vehicles on the tower. That means we need 4 different trains, and we have a visible vehicle and a control vehicle, which means we need 2 cars per vehicle. So we're going to split them off separately. So let's go over here, and actually, one more thing. We're going to use the powered launch mode without passing station. Just set it to 4 miles per hour. So let's go ahead and do that. That lets us get to what we need here. So power launch without passing station, put that to 4 miles per hour. All right, so now we're going to go back through and we're going to select the tilting free fall cars. Now Rumi has done us a benefit here by spreading these guys out. So if we again put our station house on here to test, you can see that they're all spread out very nicely. Now they're spread nicely, except for they're just slightly off from where they ought to be. So if you do splits off of this track, you can't just do 8 tiles in a row. What I found is you got to do 4 tiles and 4 more. So if that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, don't worry, we're going to get there. All right, so first things first, we're going to turn out of the station and we're going to drop down. So let's drop down to the let's call it let's see, what are we on this one? Just curiosity. We're at -5, and then the vehicle there is at -10. So we can kind of do whatever we want here, but let's get underneath. So we'll call it -15. So we want the first vehicle to be the control. So the first vehicle in each train is going to be the control, because that's the one that needs to arrive back at the station every time. So what we're doing by doing these kind of shoestring type rides is that we trick the ride vehicle into thinking it's arriving back at this station here, when it's arriving at a different station underneath. It just happens to be that it's station 1 for that ride, so it thinks, oh, it's station 1 for this ride. So that lets us operate this as we do. Okay, so we're gonna start down here and kind of set this up. Well, actually, it might be a little bit faster to go ahead and split everything up first, and then we'll drop down. So we'll just put a straight section here just so we can make it a little bit easier on ourselves. So if we actually go back through and delete all these elements, it's going to just automatically merge this very nicely for us here once we're done. All right, so like I said, we're going to split this up into a couple of different pieces. So let's just do this and follow our splitting method. Now we could split this up once it's running. I've done that in some of the other hacks where we send it out of the station do a reverse and then split it. So, for example, the Starflyer hack that we did, you recall that one, but you don't have to do that. You can actually start it from the station. So here's our first 4 splits. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right in a row. Now we'll go back through and put our 4 station platform pieces in here. Now we're going to leave a gap, 1. We're going to do this 4 more times. There. And this setup does come from just some various trial and error, so if you're a little confused as to like how did I get to this point, that's how. It was just trial and error to say, okay, well, they don't all split off at different tracks, so we need to do something different. So let's try this one, and let's try this one in this spacing. So it's a little annoying at some point, and hacking in RCT is somewhat annoying in general, but so much more easy now that we have RCT or OpenRCT and all the nice plugins, the custom rides, and everything else. Okay, so now we've got a 4 set, a space, and another 4 set. Let's delete all this back, and let's delete all this back. Now we're going to put these straight pieces back in over top of existing, and then just from a temporary testing standpoint, we're going to drop a couple pieces in here. Let's test this out and see what happens. So here as we go, you can see that splits just right, and you can see this one's about to crash, so we can't quite see, but you can see that all 4 of these are turning along. If for whatever reason it goes across this split and it doesn't cross the whole way, pull out your tile inspector here and click on that tile, and you've got 2 pieces of track, and then shift those. So essentially you want the exiting track to be on the bottom. So that's how we're going to do it. By building that track first and then building the second one over top of it, we automatically ordered it that way, so we didn't have to mess around with it. All right. So if you follow me so far, now we're going to split these apart. But first, let's go through and mark these out, and just from a ease of understanding standpoint, we're going to go through and mark this again here in a minute. So mark every other one, and that's going to be our first car. So the first car is going to go down below to our new stations. The second one, the gray one here, that's the second car in each of the trains. That's going to be your visible car that goes up onto the vertical track. So we can go ahead and make a home for our track below. Let's see where we're going to end up first. So let's drop this down like we said. We're going to drop it at -15, which is right here. I'm actually going to go ahead. We have another, get to -20. I'm going to go ahead and put mine at -20 just so I keep it on a different level and don't quite interact with all of those. So what we want to do is get 4 different rides. So we're building our blue, green, yellow, and pink runs right now. I'm just trying to keep it clean, which is why I'm keeping them at the same kind of direction here, just facing different ways. You can do it however the heck you want to do it. It's nothing wrong with any of that. Okay, and then we'll just leave that there. Actually, I'm going to build 1 out the back with a slope up, and we'll see why in a minute. That's our first one there. Drop down our second one here, and build out the back with a slope upwards. For the ease of seeing this standpoint, let me pull all this landscape up. And the hotkey for this, by the way, is H. One that I use quite often. We're just facing that way, so we want to go back the other direction. And lastly, we'll do 1 more in this direction. You want to keep them generally under your station platform because the guest will pop down here, so 4 guests will actually go down underneath but they'll walk horizontally across and then drop down. So you don't want it like over here somewhere where they're going to transpose all the way over here and then drop. It's just going to look weird. Just don't worry about it. Okay, so first things first is we've got to connect all these in. And we're trying to connect the red here with the ones down below. So for ease of doing this, we can say, all right, we're going to make this one, blue. Means we made them all blue. Make this one green. Make this one yellow. Make this one, we'll do purple since the 4D coaster up above is pink. So we're trying to just merge this right into the backside of these tracks, and we're going to go out just a little bit, only because we want to try and get our split car up the tower a little bit. So the idea here is we're going to take car 1 of 2 and car 2 of 2 and send them both underground. Car 1 of 2 gets merged over into this station, and car 2 of 2 gets merged into one of these arms of our vertical tower. And we want it to get kind of sort of up the tower. The nice thing is with the plugin that we're going to use, we don't have to get it exact. We're going to be able to fine tune and adjust that. So not to worry too far, but just to make our lives easier, we're going to go out just a little bit here and then come back. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to come all the way back here. Let's make sure we're checking our distances. Turn this, and actually I'm going to put a lift hill chain on this because what we want to do is once this guy hits the vertical here, we're going to have some trouble there. And actually, you know what? We can simplify that, and we can guarantee when we need the lift hill chain. So let's not worry there. You can see I've just built straight into this one here, so merged it straight together. Easy enough. What I'm going to do to simplify this is delete that little section here and just add a lift hill chain to the 4D coaster track. And that way, as soon as our ride vehicle gets there, it'll work. It doesn't matter which of the vehicle or which of the cars of the train gets to a chain lift, it will affect them all the same. Okay. Now we have number 2 that we're going to drop down. And we will bring this guy over as well. One of the things that I will do here is bump this out just a second. And the reason I'm doing that is just so I don't have any accidental merges with this other one, since I have to get into that same general location here. I have to get, you can see right there, in order to merge right into this blue section. Flat, and when you can't build another piece, you know that it's merged. Okay, so we are 2 of 2. Now we go to the other side. Okay, so first things first, we're going to go out a little bit, turn the corner, drop one down, and then merge ourselves into green. And then we're going to take this last one here, drop down, and actually not even use as many because we have to go a little further for this guy. Can't see that, will spin around and raise this land. You can see here we're merging right into purple. Okay, so now we have half of this completed. Now what we're going to do is take our alternate color scheme 1, and we're going to paint this whole thing red. And this will make sense here in a minute once we get to it. So we're going to paint this whole thing red. And it can be any of the alternate color schemes, does not have to be any one in particular. Okay, so the reason we're doing this is that now when we build on our other one, which we're going to change to yellow to make it a little more obvious, we don't accidentally merge into anything. Okay, so let's drop this down and look at where we're headed. So we don't want to go down right to the 15 because we're going to accidentally merge right into the red track. So let's do a shallower dive here, which puts us at -5. That means we only have to drop down one more until we get to the 10, which is what we're headed for. Okay, so let's spin this around and work our way over. It does not matter which one you connect into, so any one of these car 1s can go to any one of these 4 stations, and any one of car 2 can go to any one of these 4 towers. It does not matter if you are a little anal about how you want everything to line up. You could do purple to this one, and yellow to this one, and green to that one, and blue over. It doesn't really matter. It makes no difference whatsoever. Now we are going to drop down here right at the end, so let us spin around and connect in. Okay, let's be more efficient. Now remember, we made this pull out of the vertical section into a chain lift, so in order to get this to merge, we need to turn on the chain lift and do that. So now you can see, can't build the track, means we're merged. Okay. Number 2, doing the same sort of thing. Get ourselves around that other one there. Let's see, I think we maybe need one more. Looks like not. Drop down the 1. Turn, chain lift on, and merge. Okay, so there are the first 2 sections are all taken care of. Now we're going to go number 3, and we'll head for this guy here. And turn and lift. So there we go. And lastly, we've got number 4 here. Drop this one early. Over and merge. Okay, so there we are. It's a little bit of a spaghetti mess, but honestly, it can be as messy or as clean as you want. It doesn't really matter. But there we have it. It's all taken care of from that side. So now you can see the spaghetti mess over here. So the only thing that we're missing is our control tracks. So let's count these up real quick just to make sure I get the same distance. It doesn't really matter, but from this point, you know, this is what determines how tall your ride goes. So if we extend this whole thing out, then your ride is taller. It's really that simple. So once we curve out, we have 1 straight piece, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 straight pieces. Like I said, you can do however many you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, so temporarily, we're going to make this invisible. So let's just turn this to Crooked House. Temporarily. So now we're going to start with our first one here, and we are going to turn on our lift hill. That's the very important thing because it won't show up on the curve, so make sure you got that turned on so you know it's on. 2 corners, and then we're going to do our lift. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to do the same thing with yellow here. Turn ourselves on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then let's go ahead and turn it off and add more here. Gotcha. Around the other direction, do the same thing. You can turn these in any direction you want. I'm being consistent and turning left every time. It doesn't really matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And 1, 2 without. Turn on the green. Again, we're using our hotkey H. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Hotkey J makes the sidewalls go away. And 2 more. Okay, so that's half of it. It's very straightforward. Now what we're going to do is go back through and delete this first corner on each one of these. whatever reason, the landscape comes back every time. We just keep hiding it. All right, so now we're going to go back out of this and put in our brakes. So you can do a brake setup however you want to do it. I've gone here and done 1 at 4, 1 at 9, 1 at 13, 18, and 22. So we're just going to kind of step it up each time, just from the very bottom, 9 to 13 to 18 to 22. That's all it takes. And then we're going to go up until we reach side by side with the last chain lift piece, in which case we're going to turn it in and turn it back. Now we're going to go back to our first bit here, turn it again. Make sure the lift hill turns on and click go. So we're good to go there. Now let's do the same thing with this guy here. 4, 9, 13, 18, 22. Up here to this very final piece. There we go. Back here, turning that lift hill on. That's a big troubleshoot point. If it doesn't work, check that first. 4, 9, 13, 18, 22. J to make this invisible. Turn in, and there we go. So some Intamin Drop Towers, some of the early ones, actually have like a faux brake at the top, where you drop a little bit, then you have this almost like fake slowdown, and then it drops the rest of the way. If you want to do that, you can here. You just have to put a brake further up on this track. So essentially, this is just determining how the ride vehicle is going to slow down. You can do whatever you want with it, and you can kind of be clever if you want to do that, if you want them to look like they drop at different speeds, however you want to play with. This is the point where if you want to get all of the cars to drop at the same time, you only need one of these underground pieces and you only need one train. So you would have a 5-car train with a single one of these out and back bits underneath. You're going to split your first car down here and then split each of the 4 other cars in that train, each up their own individual side. And that way the whole thing is going to be controlled all together at once. So it's an option if you want to go that way. For this one, I didn't, but it's not to say that you don't have to. You can do whatever you want with it. All right, so there is our track. Now we're probably going to have to do some adjustment as far as layers go for each of these sides. So this is a bit of a trial and error part, which is fine. So let's test this. And as soon as this leaves the station, we're going to close it. So each one of these is going to do their own thing, and depending on the train length, we're really going to be able to adjust this pretty substantially. Actually, this first one here, turned out pretty all right. The rest of these are all going to go at slow speed because you show that they're all moving to the end of station because they never got to get to the end of the station here. So not a problem, nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. This guy's getting a good ways up the tower, which is, again, totally fine. Not a big issue. We can adjust that. Okay. So first things first is let's go ahead and adjust these. I'll show you how to do this. We may need to do it a second time depending on how it goes. Let's name this something that we can see easily. So we're going to call this Drop Tower Testing in all caps because it's going to be easy to find. We'll pull up our ride vehicles editor and drop down menu, and here we go, Drop Tower Testing right there. So select this. So this plugin allows you to do a couple of different things. You have your train and your vehicle, what kind it is, what variant it is. Some of them have different types of ride vehicles, like the train, for example, has the engine, the tender, and the actual vehicle itself. Track progress is what we're going to be looking at here. It's how far along the track it is. And then mass is another one if you want to adjust the mass of some of these. We'll actually play with that a little bit in one of the future ones. So right now what we want to do is adjust the positioning of our second car here. So we're on train 1. We want to select car 2, which you can see is right here. So our first guy is this one here. And we're going to look at track progress. And we're going to actually click this up just a little bit. And one of the things that I'm going to do here is turn on our sports. Disable support. Let's drop this down. And I'm going to go through here and put in some theming. And we'll go through here and actually put in a different thing here just so it's obvious. And then I'm also going to select one of Extreme's tower pieces and go that way. So what we're trying to do is get this to the 0 position, so the bottom position, and then all the other ones are going to basically fit the same. So let's go back down. So that looks about to be in the right position for a loading. You can easily go down a couple more if you want. You can kind of see at some point it starts to get below the space. So the number here doesn't really matter. You're just doing the up and down to get where we want to go. So now we're going to select train 2 and vehicle 2. And that's the one that was on this side that didn't get very far. So we're going to move him up. And we're going to move him a little ways. Fine. Okay, so now what we want to do is get this guy to line up just very nicely with this guy. So he's about right. We'll call him a day. Let's get rid of these huts for a second and pull train 3 and our vehicle 2. This guy got a long way up there, so he's coming back down. So let's hit the minus, and we're just going to click and hold. You can also set this to powers of 10, by the way, or 100 if you want, but we don't have far to go, so it's simple enough. Like I said, this is a very powerful hacking tool. Alright, so that looks about right to me. And then lastly, train 4, cart 2. This guy's got to drop also. And there we are. So once we bring everybody back, you can kind of see that they're all now sitting at their own nice little spot there. So let's see which of these we need to adjust, and let's set these to test. Okay, so all of these end up coming right back into the station, which means we set them in the wrong. We need to switch the location of this. So let's go ahead and mark this out just a little bit. So we know that it's this one here and this one here, and then let's take a look at, so we know if that's there, then this one's going to be right here, oh, not there, and the other one's going to be right there, the blue one, just to make sure we're doing the right things. So what we'll do is pull out our handy tile inspector. You can see we've got 2 tracks right here that we're dealing with, these purple tracks here. And we're going to just swap these in place. Now we'll click on our next bit here, this other red one. We've got quite a lot more going on at this location. So we've got a few more, but we know that these are dropped down low. These are at the lowest of the pieces that we've got. So these are the ones that have to get swapped. Now we click this one here. Again, swap those. And again, swap these. Okay, so now we can try this again, unpause this, and let them go again. So now you see that they actually turn right, and they're going up the tower. So the tower lift hill is there. We'll see here at the end, I think we'll probably have to flip these 2, but that's an easy thing to take care of. Yep, so not a problem. We can easily take care of that too. All right, so first things first, we just got to click on the right one here, make sure that we're on the right tile. So it's this one, and then we know that it's going to be this one right across. And over here, this guy, and we know that it's going to be this guy too. All right, take this 2 tracks, swap the track. Oh, not that way, swap the track. Swap the track. And swap these. This is what we avoided having to do by building the exits first here, and then the original kind of straight track over top of it. If you did that down here too, if we built this curve first from the brake and then built the chain lift into it, then we would avoid this. So just a consideration as far as that goes. Okay, unpause this, and now we're going to see them all hurry back to the station at different speeds, but then they're going to hit back. Now the cool thing is, and we're doing this with a curve here and a curve here, so that these tracks are the same length. So your up track and your down track need to be the same. There's no reason, there's nothing that says it's got to be these straight sections, but what does have to be is exactly the same. So we're turning here with the lift hill at the bottom because it's a lot easier to do that then and not up at the top here. So don't worry, that's all good. That's how it needs to be set up. All right, so we can close this up and then those will all reset back to where they need to be. The Steel Wild Mouse here can be made invisible. For this one, you know, I've not made it invisible yet, but we can use whatever. You can use any of the unknown rides. Doesn't really make a huge difference at all. This will still be our control one, so this is the one that we want to set when we're wanting to run it. And when we're wanting to close it, this is the one that we do. None of these guys down here have any effect. You don't open these, you don't close these, you don't put huts on them. They all stay exactly the same. What is important is, though, that station 1 down here must match up here. If for some reason you accidentally built another station or have a ghost station or something up here, then you need to go back through and either delete it, find out a way to delete it, or you need to make sure that these match. So it doesn't matter if they're station 2 and station 2, 3 and 3, whatever. 1 and 1 is going to be easiest, but make sure they match. If they don't match, it's not going to work right. Okay, so I did say that these were tilting freefall cars, so just real quick, one of the options that you have here, and why I put the 4D here, is you can see we have the seat rotation if you're familiar with the 4D coaster. So Rumi's rides are pretty clever in that they actually have a rotation ability on them. So we can actually go ahead and rotate these, and let's test this, and it's just this little segment here that I'm going to have done. So watch this car here, and you'll see when it gets to the sections we've changed, it's actually going to tilt. And this is a way to recreate the Falcon's Fury drop ride at Busch Gardens Tampa, or the drop ride at Gronelund that Intamin makes. So it's a cool option, cool way to do it. It will tilt on the way up and on the way down, so it's not quite the same setup, but it's the best way to do that in the game. You might remember we use the seat rotation for the Haunted House ride also, so that's something you can do. That's kind of a cool option. If you want to adjust these again, you can see they're sitting maybe a little bit higher than when we started. Just after that first run, it kind of sets itself up onto the station. You can pull out that ride vehicle editor at any point and make those adjustments. Very easy to do, easy to be done. So the next step is really just putting back your theming. If you're doing this in NCSO, you can actually just use the roto drop, which is fine. But I like to use these custom scenery pieces. So we're gonna set this up. Now, this is the magnetic brake on the ride, this kind of thicker piece, and a magnetic brake is usually about a third of the height of the tower, but you want to do it right when it starts to slow down. And then we'll take the cable section. Let's turn off our clearance so we can just knock this out and go the rest of the way. You want to go just a little bit higher than the tower itself, or than the vehicles are going, and we did go an extra height here. So we can probably delete this last one, and then you want to put something up top, like a machine room of some kind, so you've got sort of a cap to the thing. So I'm going to use just 3 pieces of scenery right here. And you can do it like that. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. Here's what I did for this guy. 4 cap with a little railing up top and a lightning rod of the flashing light. And then I've also done different colors and edited these checker pieces. Kind of similar, like I said, to how Cedar Fair does theirs, like Canada's Wonderland or Carowinds. So our dummy track here, the multi-dimension coaster, that can go away into whatever of the unknown ride, so it disappears. And we've got this guy here now as a good setup. Now, I did have these huts on the other side just for clarity's sake. You probably don't want them on that side. I would recommend, let's turn this back on. I would recommend that you put them on this side just for the sake of loading and unloading. But you can do whatever you want. Just this may not be the best of ideas as far as how those set up. But that's it. So that's how you do one of these towers. like I said, it's not super complicated. It's just a process. You got to go build through all the different elements and pieces. So not too bad, but we also spent 45 minutes talking through this tutorial. So thank you guys if you stuck around through it. After this one, we've got a couple more tutorials on the way and a number of suggestions in my inbox for others coming forward. So if you've got something else that you'd like to see, or a ride that you've kind of wondered how it was done, or just a real life ride you'd like to see if we can do an RCT, let me know. You can either leave a comment here on the YouTube channel. We also have a Discord. That's also a link in the description. So go check that out if you want as well. You can join our community and offer suggestions for future episodes, and just get work critiques or anything else really. So however you would like to make that happen. But again, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was easy and easy to understand and something that you can drop into your own park here. And if you do, send me a screenshot. I always like to see it work. So until next time, thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye now.